Breaking at this hour, for more than 20 years, this little boy was only known as Clifton Doe, found dead near a small church cemetery on Clifton Springs Road in South DeKalb County. But now he has a name.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing today? Here I am in southeast Atlanta. I'm on Clifton Springs Road, I believe it's called, and across me is Clifton United Methodist Church, if you can see it right there. I'm a little confused because I thought the cemetery was going to be behind the church. It's across the street, and I believe this is the correct cemetery. I'm going to try to figure that out. It's a very disturbing and upsetting story I'm about to talk about, and William DaShawn Hamilton, a young boy who was killed and discarded, and his body was left here at this cemetery in 1999. It wasn't until 2022 that his remains were identified, and his body he's buried here as well, but in an unmarked grave, which I find odd. I've looked over there. There doesn't seem to be a cemetery over there, but I will double check. But I know the headstones that I'm looking for where little William was left, so I'm going to try to find those ones and pay tribute and tell you what happened to this little boy. So as I walk around, I'm going to tell you there's a lot of articles online about this little boy, Clifton John Doe, as he was originally known. It was February 26, 1999, but a worker for Clifton United Methodist Cemetery right there noticed skeletal remains on the side of the woods. He immediately notified authorities, who determined it was a young male. And it was clear that the cemetery was not where he died, but rather was placed here. An autopsy considered the cause of death as undetermined. It was believed he had died in the last few months of 1998. Now, I had to read these words a couple of times. He had traces of acetaminophen and diphenhydramine. He was not malnourished. His remains did not show any signs of long-term abuse either. There is not enough evidence to rule out either homicide or natural causes. His age range determined to be between 4 and 7 years old. He was 3'10", and he weighed between 40 and 60 pounds. So the initial investigation focused heavily on what he was wearing: red jean pants, a pullover hoodie, and brown Timberland boots. Eventually, investigators, guilt, I guess, they stopped referring to him as Clifton John Doe and referred to him as Dennis. Didn't match any missing person reports. Somebody called, said they knew who he was, hung up. Police traced the call, never able to locate the caller. No missing child reports. The victim's DNA was investigated thoroughly, but no, nothing turned up until May 2020. It's so difficult trying to find the exact location. This is a crumbling old cemetery. I know one thing I'm looking for. One marker was at the edge of the cemetery. And I'm definitely getting close to there right now. There was a woman named Ava. And in May of 2020, she came across little Dennis Williams' reconstruction photo. She stated she screamed immediately when she saw it. She called the authorities, who told them that the victim's name was William DaShawn Hamilton, that she had been friends with his mother Teresa Ann Bailey Black. She said that in December 1988, Teresa Black abruptly took William out of school, stated that the two were moving to Atlanta, Georgia to be with relatives. Ava stated, and I quote, "William hugged me and I hugged him. We kept hugging. She had to practically pry us apart to get him back in the car. That was it. That's the last time I saw him." The mother later returned to Charlotte without William and consistently changed her story as to why Hamilton was no longer with her. Ava says she felt like Teresa Black wanted to live a life like William never existed. Authorities took Ava's claims seriously, and through further DNA testing, they figured out that indeed the little boy was William DaShawn Hamilton.
But now he has a name. It's William DaShawn Hamilton.
On July 13th, 2022, she was arrested, the mother. She was charged with 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of first-degree cruelty to children, 1 count of aggravated assault, and 1 count of concealing the death of another person. The prosecution alleged that she drugged her little boy with the 2 drugs that I mentioned, and then murdered him by striking him with an unknown object. Ava, one of the heroes of this story, stated that she never thought Teresa was capable of something like this, but that she wasn't a loving mother and that she was distant and impatient with him. She went to trial for the murder of little William. The prosecution said she murdered him by drugging him and then striking him in the head with an unknown object, as evidenced by fractures in his skull. Her defense argued the fractures could have been caused by animals while William's body was in the woods. Her defense stated, and I quote again, "You can hate her for this. You can hate her for these lies. That is not what Teresa Black is on trial for." At the time, they were homeless. Her defense was that she chose the cemetery to sleep one night because it was safe, and she had given her son over-the-counter medication, and he died in his sleep. And her defense stated that she left him there because she feared she would be blamed for his death. Left him here. Somewhere here. Oh, I think I see. Possibly. Where? No, I don't. I'm not sure. The prosecution stated there were individuals who loved him, but there was one individual who failed him, and she failed him miserably. And it was the one individual who was supposed to love him unconditionally. Instead, she discarded him as if he were trash. Her family testified against her trial, including William's father. He stated the last time he saw William was when he first started elementary school, and that following the time of his death, Teresa had sought child support. Her family stated that any of them would have taken care of William if she could not.
She was found guilty on the charge of concealing the death of another person, but not guilty on all other charges.
She was sentenced to 10 years in prison, which was the maximum under Georgia law for concealing the death of another person, but the judge said it warranted much more than that. Warrants for the atrociousness of leaving her child to rot out here. It deserved the maximum, and I do not disagree. As I'm looking for the exact location, it's the edge of the woods, and I'm walking around the edge of the woods. News footage of it shows these 2 graves here, but I don't see them. I'll take one more walk around, and I really, really, really wish I could visit his exact grave. But I don't see even where his body was left. At the edge of the forest. I don't know. Oh, wait a minute. No. I'm gonna walk over to the church and check and double check there's not a little graveyard maybe beside it. All of it is beginning to look like it could be any one of these, but I don't think so. But if it's not at the church, it was here somewhere. I'm just not able to locate the exact location where little William was left behind. It's more important to me to be able to go to his grave, of course, but like I said, unmarked. I would hope soon he gets a special grave.
As I've been working on this video and editing it after I filmed it a couple of months ago, I found out that there is an unmarked headstone that is put at the side where William's body was found, but his body's not buried where that headstone is. That's just an indicator of where his body was found. And I didn't find that. I didn't see that when I was there.
And just when I was not going to give up, I was going to walk across the street, I found where his remains were found. It's behind these two, right at the front of the cemetery, behind the Huey family. I would imagine he's buried close by, maybe, I don't know. There's the church. Here it is, matches up with the photos. Yeah, that's where they found him. I've had plans to do a story about William for quite a long time, and I've carried something around with me like I've done before, knowing I'm going to come out here. I'm going to leave this right here. It's for little William. Seems to be a newer grave here. I've kind of been keeping my eye out as I've been looking. Excuse me. See if I spot any that say Hamilton. I don't. I hope everyone here is resting in peace. There seems to be some newer burials still happening here. Probably parishioners of the church. Little William deserves a headstone. He deserves one here.
After discovering that there is a headstone where his body was found, I now think that there should be a headstone where his body is, and it should be properly engraved.
William was 6 years old. Now I know I looked into this yesterday about if a parent doesn't want a child, as unfathomable as that is, once they're like grown, a baby, 2 years old, 4 years old, up to a teenager. What steps do they have to go through? How does that work? It's a very, very difficult process to give up your child. I would imagine emotionally, but for some people probably maybe not, because you're giving up a child, so I don't know what kind of emotions you have. But I also would think that, but I also know that legally it's incredibly difficult to surrender your child to the state or whatever. They'll do a lot of background checks on you, try to convince you to keep the child, look at family members, that sort of thing, before the child is taken out of care. You know, I don't know what I'm trying to say, first of all. But I don't know the solution to something like this, because if she didn't want her child, somebody else would have wanted little William, his family, or complete strangers. Somebody could have taken care of him. What she did was pure evil and pure selfishness, and one of the worst things. She reminds me of Susan Smith, Chris Watts. She should be serving a lot more time than that. She should be serving life. We take our pets, people like humans, to a humane society if you no longer want your pet, which is unfathomable to me as well. And then it's a quick and easy thing. If somebody doesn't want their child, sure, you got to maybe double check with them on, and why and all that. But if somebody's saying they don't want their child, get that child away from them. Every child deserves love, care, and a real family. And William deserves so much more. I don't mean to equate anything like William being like I'm not saying about the stray animals like that. It's just, people discard their animals, and they get adopted, and it's so easy to surrender your animal, your pet, your child. If somebody doesn't want the child, I think it should just be, okay, we're going to take the child away from you, because if you don't want them, we don't know what you're going to do to them. I've seen a lot of stories like this. I've covered them and I've read about them. William deserved way more. William deserved a life. William will be in his 30s now, 22, 6. He'll be late 20s. No, 24, 25. He'll be 30. Missed his whole life. The story really aggravated me. Just like the Susan Smith one did, Casey Anthony. Rest in peace, little William Dennis Clifton John Doe. He's now known as William DaShawn Hamilton. Say his name, and let's hope that the cemetery or the county here gets a headstone for him. Thanks for watching, everybody. Rest in peace, little William, wherever you are behind me. He's somewhere here. Peace out.